Thanks for joining today, and really excited about our guest today. So I'm Prem Bhatia, I'm co-founder at CoolLeaf, and really excited about our guest today. So Andre Peart is from ConConnect. Andre, if you don't mind giving everybody just a quick overview of your background and what ConConnect is, that'd be great.
Yeah, Prem. So thanks for having me on the show, man. Good question about the business. Just to give you a quick overview on me and the business. So I'm from New York State. Um, did 6 years in state prison. Went through a sort of really, really rough journey, and we'll go through more of the details and the juicy parts later. But that eventually had me start ConConnect. ConConnect connects people that did prison time, formerly incarcerated, justice impacted individuals on parole, probation, and connects them with different services such as healthcare, housing, banking, transportation, and then employment. So we do it in that step, so that way, by the time we connect them with employer partners, they're employment ready, right? So we're sort of like a LinkedIn style social network for formerly incarcerated. We're a case management system for service providers, and then we're a job posting platform for employers. So bringing all the stakeholders involved in the platform, so that way individuals coming home from prison don't have to bounce around and meet these stakeholders that they need. They find them all in one network.
That's great. Congrats. I know as a founder, can tell us a little bit about, do you have co-founders? Is it just you? Tell me.
Single. Yeah, definitely. Single founder Prem. So definitely have a great team, but it started the company by myself. And just sort of until we can actually start hiring people.
Yeah, that's amazing. If you think about what you guys are doing at ConConnect, I mean, it would be great to sort of tell a little bit about what your background and your story, your lived experience on this. Like, can you tell me a little bit about that? Maybe just help for, I'm personally interested because I don't think I've heard this, and I think it'd be great for our listeners to hear it as well.
Yeah, definitely. I never mind sharing the story. So again, New York City. So grew up in New York City, and then just skipping through like the childhood part and up to like early 20s, got in trouble, weapons offense. So was caught with a couple weapons and drugs, and for me that sended me to an 8 year sentence where I was fortunate enough to do just 6 years out of the eight due to good behavior and get out of prison. And what a lot of people feel to, it's always super hard for them to believe. I tell people it's harder for me to get out of prison and go through that journey than actually the time I did in prison. The time in prison was time in prison, but leaving out, trying to get a job, trying to get services, with that felony on your record, totally different ball game. It was no longer the same normal route that I went through before that conviction. So super hard to get social services, health insurance, got to go through a different route because you have a felony, a job, different categories of jobs now that I'm used to because I have a felony. So like maintenance, scrubbing toilets, on the back of garbage trucks. Literally, the things I'm naming are the jobs that I actually did within like my first 9 months of being home. And then just having to be in a shelter because no housing now because you have this felony record. So really going through all of that stuff brought me to say there's 600,000 more individuals coming home from state prison every year. It's not just me, and that didn't sit right, right? It didn't sit right with me. Starting a nonprofit didn't sit right with me. Like, hey, let me just help my community when there's like the whole 50 states are, the United States has locked up the most more people than any entire country in the world. So something needed to be done, and I just saw technology as a way to innovate this entire system.
That's awesome. That's like, I think a lot of people don't, understand that there's a lot of folks that have gone through the system, and possibly for those offenses that have been expunged for many of those folks, that's been hopefully fortunate for many folks, but I know it's still an issue. Can you tell us a little bit about, like, obviously, like, expungement is something that happens after a while, I would think, right? Is that right, in terms of your record, or how does that work?
So expungement's it's a popular thing to talk about. Then it's really not a, it's a popular thing to talk about amongst politics, right? Politicians, representatives. When it comes to individuals actually affected by it, it's 7 to 10 years before you can even go get expungement, right? In most circumstances. So when I still look at it, I gotta wait 7 to 10 years before I can live a normal life. Like I'm not worried about that. By year seven, I would hope that I'm who's thinking about expungement anymore at year seven? I've probably got a house by myself through all. I've probably done everything, but all the hard way. I've gotten a house, a job, through the struggle, but now I'm at year 7, and do I really feel like, oh, let me go get expunged and do all this stuff all over again to try to get a better house, or let me go get a better career now. Let me redo my life. So, expungement's a popular thing, getting people, hey, let's get your record. But what a lot of individuals don't know, and why these talks are good, is you got to wait 7 to 10 years, right? In 90% of those cases. So it's not something that somebody can do within their first year, their second year, and you still got that record, and you still got to fight the system for 7 years.
When you set out to kind of have those issues that you confronted after your time, um, tell us a little bit about why, you decided that tech was the answer around, how you're specifically, addressing this issue versus other approaches that have been taken around it.
I want to really say the only other approach that's ever been like taken was nonprofits, right? The reentry providers. You start a nonprofit, you provide a service, you start a nonprofit to help people with resumes or to do job placement, and that that's cool. It causes impact in a community. I'm going to say I belong to the younger generation, and I really didn't see nonprofit as an innovative way to to approach. So it's like I saw technology being. I had a computer science background in college. I'm just big on computer science, technology, just in general. So I just envisioned, literally just in a shelter in my bed, how can technology come into this sector and do all this? And I thought of LinkedIn. I was like, well, LinkedIn's like networking people around, and who needs more networking than like somebody like me? I was like, I need to be networked around with the proper stakeholders, and that's where I just said, let me just go on and build that technology. So technology to me, like, it's making corporations make more money. It's getting people like to listen to this podcast. Like right now, we're using technology in the reentry sector and nonprofit, social and civic. You would think if you worked in that sector, you'd feel like it's 1950. There's no technology, pens, papers, folders, spreadsheets, and we're still in 2023, so the entire sector was missing technology.
So tell us a little bit about, like, when you think about reentry professionals, what are some of the stigmas that, you've seen with employers, and, how do we kind of address some of those? What's sort of the stigma right now, and how do you think, you're going about addressing that now?
Yeah, so with the stigma, when every time I get asked this question, and you know we're the largest company, like tech company, doing the reentry, the adjusted technology. It's like, to be honest, the stigma it's like a fake hidden stigma, right? When we get on the call with employers, um, employers they've heard about the stigma of, hey, if I hire somebody, are they gonna like, if I hire a bank robber, like, are they gonna like rob, the place? Or if I hire this person who sold drugs, are they gonna sell drugs in my establishment? Nobody's ever mentioned that to us on a call, because now we're in an actual time where it's actually a conversation to be talked about, and there's no data points showing that actually ever happened. Like, Prem, I mean, there's actually no data showing these things, that the stigma, all the stigma, what it's about, that it actually ever happened. So when we go into these calls, it's more so now what we hear is, hey, legally, certain jobs can't match with certain backgrounds. For example, going back to the bank, at a bank, we can't hire a bank robber to work as a bank teller. Just is not gonna, it's not gonna fit. So that's more of and I don't really want to call that a stigma. I want to call that's more of the conflict we see when we're on these calls. We use the tech. So what we do and how we fix that is our technology. Employer posts a job on our platform. Our technology takes that job and connects it with a formerly incarcerated individual who has done like services, professional upskilling, soft skills that match what that employer is looking for. So that way we can have a better match. Their criminal background is not going to conflict with that job. They have the soft skills, and that way we can give the employer a more safe, secure approach to getting the talent, and really not and then overlooking the stigma, because now they can get on this platform and see individuals as an individual. But to be honest, we actually haven't like been on a call where it's like, if I hire some violent felony offenders, Andre, are they going to be like doing crazy stuff? It's always like, well, in our legal team just has this stuff written up like this as of right now. So we have to match roles with certain individuals.
I see. And what industries are you all, like, finding that you're placing folks into for the most part now? Or, are there industries that should be doing more with formerly incarcerated individuals that are not? Are there industries that have taken the lead on some of that?
There's, I want to say the blue collar industry has always taken the lead on hiring formerly incarcerated individuals. And it's not always because they've been the most caring. It's because when you think blue collar, let's be real, it's not always the best paying type of jobs in the blue collar sector. There are some really good high paying jobs in the blue collar sector. 70% of them aren't high paying jobs. So those are the jobs that are given to these individuals. So it's like a lot of it looks like doing good when in reality it's like this is like hard labor that really I can't find other people to do and this population's willing because there is nothing else. Then we have tech companies that are actually now starting a bunch of boot camps. Like Slack has started something, to help people like get into like land jobs in tech. You do have the tech industry that's like certain companies looking into like how they can do more to get people that are formerly incarcerated in tech jobs. We are seeing other companies step up and try to figure out like, well, let's get people placed in like customer success, more remote jobs where they're actually not in our office. And I don't really like the approach too much because it still is like, well, why are you holding them from being in the office? Well, I would like to, I want to network with Prem in the office and have a coffee. So we don't like the stigma of that, but it's like it's still a start for us as a company, right? It's and not in a business, but in an impact point of view. It's still a start for the people that we're serving. So industries that can do more is really all industries if they look at it in a economically strategic way, matching talent that has different backgrounds with different skills based on what they were locked up for like, an ex somebody did like drug dealing but got like a kingpin charge, meaning they made millions of dollars. I'm sure they have the skills to work in somewhere where they can apply those skills. It's just about how can you match those individuals instead of overlooking those individuals, right? So I've seen plenty of those where we place people based off their previous different skills, and most of those skills may be things like they sold drugs, and we figure out how do we transfer those skills into things that can be applied in real business, right? Perfect example, Prem. I got locked up for selling a ton of drugs. I used a lot of what I did to grow that industry when I was in that applied to my startup today, and in a year we grew into like 17 different cities, right? So it's just like transferable skills into finding it, and we're trying to help employers just look at it that way.
Yeah, it's like the flip side of like hustle, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I think what's interesting about entrepreneurship, so I'm one of the co-founders at Coolleaf, and you obviously taken the road as a founder. So much of what people talk about is hustle, right? And so that the angle of kind of like applying that in a positive direction, as opposed to one that's destructive for families or destructive for the individual, like, is just amazing. I think that's great. I think the idea of actually, have you guys thought about making this more of an entrepreneurship track for many of those folks or not?
We've thought of that, and then the transparent answer is not everybody coming. So the thing is, hey, let's do entrepreneurship because they can't get a job. Formerly incarcerated can't get a job, so the best thing for them is entrepreneurship, and that's what a lot of people say. And then we tell them that's true and not true. Not everybody's, and it goes back to let's take it to the average person. The average person, not everybody's built to be an entrepreneur. Not everybody's built to be a founder. Same thing for a formerly incarcerated individual. Just because they have a felony that can't get and they can't get a job doesn't mean let's try to figure out how. Because then you'll still send 30% of them up to fail because entrepreneurship's not embedded in their body and their DNA and their blood nor their mindset. So we have thought of that, but we also just try to figure out where do these people want, where would they have been, or where would they have wanted to be in their life if they didn't have this conviction. Where does I like to say, where does the good side of you, where before you went to that lifestyle, where did you think of your future? Were you a lawyer? Were you a doctor? How do we get you those credentials to get back there? Right, versus like, and if you want to be an entrepreneur, how do we get you there? We actually want to meet people where they want to be, and that's always been like our thing with ConConnect, with asking people during onboarding, where do you want to be, right? And we try to match you so we can get you there.
Yeah. It's amazing, like in some industries, how, you look at someone like 50 Cent who just basically took what he like learned on the streets and then turned it into like a hip hop, career. Like it's like, do you see more of that happening in hip hop and other places like where it's almost seen as like you've got more cred now that you come into like that world? I mean, tell me a little bit about that and how that could be true of like entrepreneurship or other areas as well.
I want to say that so yes, like in entrepreneurship, like from 50 Cent to being in the streets, taking it to like hip hop. We all know all the stuff he's doing. He sold vitamin water. He's making bank, right? And it's a lot of those skills and a lot of the a lot of 50 Cent strategy being real bold, a lot of his bad strategy and the things he does and the way he dominates on these deals and businesses are everything his stuff from the streets. Like a lot of his like upbringing, his knowledge, and the way he enforces things come from the street because that's just how business should be done. Really straightforward. I see that in a lot of these formerly incarcerated individuals, and I see it in real time from like formerly incarcerated individuals now that have coming home, and that have like used all those past drug experience, drug dealing or whatever, and now have $1 million businesses. Like just like talking about one like Con Body, guy did 7 years in state prison, lost 100 pounds in state prison, came home, was a kingpin, made millions, used that. Now has a fitness boot camp in New York City. They just opened. They're franchising all over the world, right? It's like so I'm actually watching people companies, and it's like six formerly incarcerated individuals that have companies making, doing cause and impact, making money, and all those qualities were just right coming from like their street life, and now bringing it into the entrepreneurship, and now dominating the entrepreneurship world in their industries using all their past street knowledge.
Do you find that when employers are bringing folks that are formerly incarcerated into, into their employee ranks, like, are those folks more likely to stick around in many cases, or are they less likely to stick around? Tell us a little bit about how that retention works.
Yeah, definitely. So a lot of great studies out there. Prison Policy Initiative, SHRM has studies. Most people know about SHRM, so we'll just like use their studies. 88% of employers they spoke to said their talent that's formerly incarcerated lasted, I believe, 3 times as long as their average talent. So on average, formerly incarcerated lasts at least 5 years in the workplace. Um, the Army did a survey where it was how many formerly incarcerated individuals do we promote to lieutenant versus our individuals that aren't, and they promoted formerly incarcerated individuals to lieutenant and sergeant faster than their normal individuals that were joining the Army or joining the Marines. So there's a bunch of data, right, that just shows that formerly incarcerated individuals get a job and they stick to the job. Those qualities come from loyalty, understanding like the hardship of how it was to get a job. And when I get that first offer from somebody like, Prem, I'm working at Cool Leaf, I get that offer, you have my loyalty. And you may not know why, but it's because of the struggle I went through. Now I have this opportunity to get to, finally like give back, be a citizen. And they show through that longevity of staying at workplaces. And then it's also just the understanding of why do I want to go through the search again, right? Why do I want to leave Cool Leaf or leave ConConnect and go through the search again of finding another job? And, you know, all those things have pointed back to just people long retention rates inside of corporations.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people don't maybe understand that when folks get that second chance, it's something they take very seriously,
Right.
right? I know that like and I think that's something that's worth like kind of emphasizing is that as you think about roles, and we talk about labor shortage in this country, um, is it possible to sort of look at like the future kind of the types of things that you all are doing to kind of, look at those specific areas where we have a serious labor shortage, of specific roles? Like, are you guys focused on doing some of that already?
We're focused on doing it now. So I mean, that's our main side. We're hammering I like to say the HR, the employment side of our business. So we're working with staffing agencies, we're working with employers directly, working with training providers, and just doing a number of different things. But what we're really doing is identifying the high turnover roles in most industries right now. Really identifying those and then talking to companies that hire a ton of those positions and helping them learn that those don't have to be high turnover anymore. If you give a population a chance, you can turn what's been high turnover positions in your corporation for maybe 20 years because companies know like they get used to it. Those are just our high turnover positions. We have an outsourcing recruitment firm that deals with them, and we don't really give two craps. Like we're going to do it. And if we go in there, try to change that mindset, right? You can turn this into a position that's no longer high turnover. Do you want to see what 20 years of savings looks like when you're not firing, or we're not firing, or people are not leaving every, 1 year, 16 months? And that's what we're doing right now.
It's amazing. Um, so for leaders that are watching this and considering, um, that many folks haven't even really entertained the idea of formerly incarcerated, individuals as part of their employee workforce, um, what advice would you give them now? And kind of what are the next steps that they can take to start down this path?
I always tell, I best this is not really advice. I like to give the truth to most employers. A third of the U.S. population is formerly incarcerated or has a record. One in every three individuals, no matter where you're at a bar, you're at a restaurant, in your workforce, if it's more than 250 people, most likely somebody there has some type of record, and they're most likely performing within your company. So it's always tell people, give people a shot. And I always tell people, I'm sure you can relate to this, Prem, but whether it's incarceration or something in life, we've all been given a second chance, right? Whether it's just something, whether it was another job, whether it doesn't have to report to doesn't have to relate to incarceration directly, but people have been given a second chance, most individuals. So I always tell employers, what would have happened if you weren't given that second chance? And where would you be at today? So when we ask employers to give a second chance on our platform, they can do that directly through ConConnect.com. We do an onboarding with every employer so they understand how they can get talent on our platform, the difference in using it, and how we can give them data to make smart decisions, and then how their workforce looks with a now diversified workforce. So it all happens at ConConnect.com.
Amazing. Andre, thanks so much for joining us today, telling us a little bit about the story of ConConnect. Excited for you guys and your founder journey. I know it's a tough one sometimes, but it's also an amazing journey to be on. So, we'd love to stay connected and look forward to having everybody check out ConConnect. And thanks for your time today. It's really great.
No, thank you, man. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thanks.